So, how do you see things shaping up for UCLA at this point for all its three MBA programs?
Yeah, sure. Thank you for that particular question. Like you mentioned, things are changing, and to me, it seems like daily in higher ed. I'm excited to announce that literally 2 days ago, UCLA Anderson announced to the world that we are now STEM certified. We are STEM certified in our full-time MBA program, as well as our Master of Financial Engineering and Master of Science and Data Analytics. Our MBA programs have always had significant quantitative elements throughout the core, throughout its program. Technology has advanced, as we all know, and more MBA students are turning to tech careers. The number of data analytics courses that we do have in our MBA curriculum has grown significantly during that time. And so the other important thing I think about that is that STEM MBA is very desirable among employers, and it makes it possible for international students in particular, graduates of the program, who now typically are eligible to hold U.S. jobs for 1 year. They can apply to remain in the country for an additional 24 months after graduation. So that's been very well received by our students and prospective candidates in general. The other part to that, like you mentioned, is investigating new models in the delivery of education. Anderson started this process years ago in creating more of a hybrid program formally with its part-time MBA program. So it wasn't difficult for us to make the transition most recently with our current students who completed their spring quarter. So now looking to the future, to your point, is like, what is it going to be ongoing? We're definitely not going to rely solely on delivering content online. We do believe there's value in personal interaction face to face, but we want to make sure that it's an environment that is safe for all those involved and it doesn't compromise the delivery of that content, of that MBA experience.
Aspiring MBA students are anxious, and they're anxious certainly because of the COVID-19 situation, but they're also anxious because they feel that part of the class for next year may already be full because people may have deferred, and there are more people applying to B-School this year because the opportunity cost is lower, and so they wonder, is this the right time to apply? It may otherwise be the right time to apply for them given their situations in their own careers. But they wonder, am I disadvantaging myself by applying this year in some way? So what would you say?
Yeah, so I understand sort of that anxiety, that fear, that sort of unknown about what if I apply. I heard about deferrals, etc. So for UCLA Anderson, we don't reserve seats in the future for individuals who may have been, say, admitted specifically this year. That is our deferral policy. So having said that, for those individuals who are looking at applying class of 23 and beyond, there are no sort of seats that are already spoken for. So that answers that question. I totally encourage anyone to look at the different schools' policy, because you're right, there's been a lot of announcements at different schools that say they're giving all of their students an opportunity to defer. There's been announcements about schools, how many they've granted, etc. So definitely look at those schools' policies, and then you can start running the math. But at Anderson, we don't reserve future seats for anyone. Now, having said that, when it comes to the current situation that we're in, like you mentioned, the pandemic and other factors, I'm a big believer in that if you think this is the right time for you to apply because your interests, whether it be career related or some other growth opportunities that you see the full-time MBA program or any graduate business degree opportunity is the right choice for you, do it. Things could be totally different in a year from now. You can't necessarily guess what's going to happen in the future, but if you think you have the right story, if you think you have, say, the right work experience, all those things that come into an application, I highly encourage you to do so. Now, the reality is, for some people, maybe they don't get admitted to the program that they are ideally looking to get into, say a dream school, but maybe those lessons learned from the application process, getting feedback if the school offers it, can help you tweak it, and then maybe you're just a year away from being in the program that you really want to be in. But I encourage, especially as they're looking to you and your organization and the content that you're providing, I applaud them for taking this first step and getting a better understanding of the different programs, specifically for UCLA Anderson, and understanding more about the environment, the culture. The last thing I'll say on that, and I'll turn it back to you, is that as part of that investigation, talk to the students. I'm sure you will find probably a student who probably has the same thoughts about, should I apply to business school? Of course, the situation may have been different, say a year ago, but the reasons for why they are looking at business school is probably a little bit similar to your own. The circumstances will be definitely different, but they may also give you a different idea about now as a student what that experience is like, and how maybe their ideas have changed about how they're going to take advantage of the MBA experience. May open sort of your eyes on what you hadn't thought about before. I think you hit on a key point. Many who have never lived in Los Angeles or visited, they sort of see some of the surface elements, right? The great weather being one of those. But when you step on a campus like UCLA, a research institute, it's so much going on the campus. Academically, like you pointed out, is that our students are able to take courses on other parts of the campus, the engineering school, the law school, the School of Public Policy, etc. And some of those courses, many of those courses, can apply towards your graduation. So that's one benefit, and that's sort of the luxury of going to a big university. The other, I think, important aspect of that is that just like UCLA Anderson, when you look at the student body, it's really diverse. Over 30% of our class are international students. Not everyone has a business background, so those who have engineering backgrounds, those who come from the social impact space, those who come from just other areas of business and non-business, which is fantastic. People are coming in with different interests as well. So our school and our students are not necessarily, say, just focused on one or two or even three different types of careers. And I think that's what makes not just, say, the UCLA Anderson campus so exciting, but even when you go to the broader UCLA campus, whether it be with the large undergraduate population or some of the other parts of the graduate school population. Some of my fond memories of the students who have come and graduated, I remember those who have sort of gotten out of their comfort zone and explored the rest of the university. One year we had one of our Anderson students be president of the graduate student senate, which is, that's amazing, because he had to be elected by not just his peers at Anderson, but others from across the broader community at UCLA. And my last point on that is just that, again, you're in Los Angeles, so while things, I feel, and I think students believe this too, are so fantastic and amazing and has great people on the UCLA Anderson campus, then you go to the broader UCLA campus that I just mentioned, but then you're in Los Angeles, another world, so to speak, to explore. It's very big, but somewhat easy to get around, Los Angeles. But again, here is a scene, especially that we call Silicon Beach. It's basically the center of the technology world here in Southern California, and most likely in the future will be play a bigger presence, even bigger than, say, Silicon Valley, and some have said. So it's just a fantastic place, UCLA being sort of the nexus of all of that, where you can start your exploration at the Anderson campus and then keep broadening it to off our campus and even off the UCLA campus into the broader community.
Great. So Alex, as you know, the UCLA MBA has always been a very hands-on program, right? So if we look at the AMR especially,
yes,
that is one of the components that almost every student and graduate would call out as a distinctive part of the UCLA MBA experience. But given the scenario right now, how are you taking things ahead with it?
Sure. So the AMR is our Applied Management Research Project. So we were the first school many years ago, decades, to provide this opportunity for our students to have this type of experience where they engage with an organization to solve a real business challenge. It's morphed over the years, and what I mean by that is that now the AMR is essentially, it's a capstone project where you have two options. The more formal tradition is the one that I just described, where our students, say in previous years, would have options to work primarily with domestic organizations. Now, over the last 6-7 years, our students are able to work on international projects. They still have that ability in some of the framework of creating their own team, looking at a list that is typically 100 to 150 different projects made available by our AMR office. And in some cases, those projects are now looking at sort of the social impact space. So they're not all, say, for-profit companies. So there's a lot of variety for our students. Now, the other option that has come onto the scene that started years ago was the business creation option, or the BCO. Now those students who are more entrepreneurial focused have that opportunity to work on their company while they're in school. Again, there are a number of different success stories over the years. Up until 2019, over $30 million had been raised by many of these ventures. And the reason why I say up to 2019 is because last year, a student team that focused on a real estate venture looking at a housing solution that had a convergence of housing and healthcare in its plans, they were able to secure over $20 million from the city of Los Angeles for their solution. So that just shows you sort of, especially being in Los Angeles, the opportunity for those who are really probably the number one place in the world for entrepreneurial ventures, small business type of operations, but to come work on their business and grow if they're not necessarily focused on, say, a corporate career.
Absolutely. And I think one of the things that's really driving that change has been technology. And UCLA is certainly top of the list when it comes to technology. UCLA has always had multiple resources, the Eastern Technology Leadership Program, the brown bag lunches, right? Multiple top speakers, tech CEOs coming to campus to share their experiences. So tell me a little bit more about how technology at UCLA is a part of the MBA program, beyond the bigger name events like the Eastern program.
Sure. No, that's a great question. So, like you mentioned, the Eastern Technology Center is one of our research centers at the school. And while many students do focus on, say, specifically that type of career, I look back about 10 years ago, it was probably less than 10% of the students were focused on a career in technology. Today, a third of our students, or 33%, are focused on such endeavors. But still, like you mentioned, there are some interest in other areas outside of, say, a technology career. But I think what is fantastic that the Eastern Technology Center provides for all of our students, which is woven into other courses, but even sort of activities outside of the classroom, are, for example, workshops. Our students, while they may not necessarily want to do, say, a deep dive in, say, a programming language like Python, they can do so. I think one of the best things too about coming to Anderson is, one of the things that we're wanting to make sure is that our students become leaders. We want leaders to go out into the business world and make disruptions for the right things. And the reason why I mention that is because many times these workshops are not necessarily led by, say, administrators or faculty. There are a few, but there are students, there are peers who have that expertise, talking to their students, making it sort of simple, the information to digest, so to speak, in preparation for internships or just general awareness, which is fantastic. And like you mentioned, there are other things like we call them tech treks, visiting companies that, again, maybe say interest for summer internships or full-time employment. Again, when you look at sort of disciplines outside of just say the technology realm, whether students are focused on careers in management consulting, whether they're focused on careers in, say, brand management. Just like you said earlier, technology is really going to be part of that, say, fabric. And having some knowledge, some awareness, what's going on in the business world, technology, it's something that, everyone needs to be aware of because, let's face it, that's where sort of the world is going. Everything is going to be sort of infused in sort of our daily lifestyles about technology, and even sort of scenarios like we're going through right now. I don't know about you, but I found myself ordering food online for delivery, checking bank statements, which I was doing already. It's just like, that technology piece is huge for today's sort of living environment.
Alex, my next question is around UCLA more than Anderson. So, an Anderson student is not just an Anderson student, right? He or she is also part of the UCLA fraternity. So what are the advantages of, being on campus at such a renowned university? And one of the questions that I get on this very often is that, well, LA is great, but LA is not Silicon Valley, right? Especially for those who are looking for careers in Silicon Valley. So how well can UCLA students looking especially for technology careers interface with companies in Silicon Valley?
Absolutely. So I'll start off with something that has been consistent for as long as I've been at UCLA Anderson. We have one of the best, if not the best, career management center that is consistently ranked every year for number one in student satisfaction. And you can go and look at some of these different rankings. And I think that's important because not all business school career centers are the same. They don't all have the same model. Our career center engages with our students who enroll early to build relationships, to talk and really flush out what ideas the student has in mind of a career. They really kind of give them a lot of homework up front so that to really see, do you have the right skill set? Things to see that if you're targeting, say, a technology company, do you have the appropriate skill sets? Do you have the right work experience? They have years of experience of seeing how different profiles succeed. And the good thing is that if there is, say, a gap in, say, a skill set or another area that needs some work on, some improvement, there's time to do it. They are willing to work with you. You have an individual counselor who's going to be with you for the journey, whether it's the full 2 years while you're at Anderson, or if it's a shorter time frame where maybe there's a more appropriate counselor that can help you based off of that counselor's expertise. So that's one thing. Then when you look at all the other programming that the Career Center does manage, our students do tech treks. So they will travel not only to Silicon Valley, they'll go further up the West Coast. They'll go as far as up to Seattle. There are students who go to the East Coast and visit technology companies out there, even the Midwest. So I think that's another testament that it's really not so much a cookie cutter process or program, but it's one that it really caters to the individual interest, and there's that flexibility in that piece as well. And then the other thing, we talked about this earlier, is that there are career nights, so I know that some may say, well, tell me a little bit more that goes beyond just the exposure aspect. Within the Easton Technology Center, there's opportunities that if you become Easton Fellow, there's financial awards around that. There are opportunities to receive mentors as well. So to help sort of supplement the guidance that you get from the Career Management Center. And then of course you have the academic piece. We talked about earlier about the workshops, but I think that key piece of having different resources put in front of the student is so important. Those coming from the corporate environment, which Anderson alumni are definitely figure prominently in, but then also from the academic arena as well, who many have, say, plenty of contacts in the corporate space. And then my final piece I'll just mention about that, which I think is part of that networking aspect, is that when you do your AMR, your capstone project, or even if you do the BCO, it's another way to get more exposure to organizations, to people who may be the subject matter experts, and build relationships. Our students are very strategic about how they put their teams together, what projects they focus on, because in many cases they're looking to extend the relationship beyond the deliverables that come in March. They want to continue those relationships for personal reasons, which many times are career related.
Right. Very interesting. So I think that's a key point of the ecosystem, the Career Management Center.
Mail us your resume now if you're looking for such career transformations. If you appreciate our video, then like and share it, and subscribe to our channel to know more about life at top MBA programs.